The identification of vulnerabilities is critical to the process of risk management. It would not be possible for an organization to protect itself if it did not recognize and address the vulnerabilities or gaps that could be exploited by a risk event. We recognize the importance of knowing the enemy and understanding the threat sources that may attack us, but it is equally important to know whether our organization has the weaknesses or conditions that could be exploited by that enemy. The process of vulnerability identification is often referred to as vulnerability assessment. Vulnerability assessment is much more than just a technical review of network security. It is the methodical and scientific process of careful examination of the entire organizational environment to find any possible points of compromise. Vulnerability assessment should examine all the areas that make up the security fabric of the organization. The technical, procedural, physical, and managerial elements of organizational operations that are woven into the overall operations of the business. It must be remembered that even a small hole in a fabric can lead to a major tear or compromise. The vulnerability assessment is successful only when it has identified any possible points of compromise. Vulnerability assessment is usually performed in two ways: as part of overall risk assessment and risk management planning, and in response to or in anticipation of major changes in the organization, its objectives, systems, internal processes, or its external interfaces. Either way, vulnerability assessment must be driven by organizational priorities. Even the smallest of small and medium businesses, SMBs, will have far more elements in their information systems architecture than they generally have time to do a detailed vulnerability assessment of. We'll see how this is done in greater depth in the next module of this chapter. Linked to vulnerabilities are predisposing conditions. Predisposing conditions are environmental factors that could diminish the effectiveness of the organization's risk management process. Local area labor unrest due to long-standing problems in the community, for example, may make it difficult to accurately gauge employee motivation or how effectively they benefit from procedural and security awareness, education, and training activities. Another example might be if senior management and leadership have almost no tolerance for risks, but are equally unwilling to invest in changes as part of risk mitigation. Mergers and acquisitions can also bring a set of undocumented security issues, along with the systems and assets being taken on board by the gaining organization. Each of these, as prevailing conditions, are a part of the vulnerability assessment landscape, you might say. The skill and dedication of an organization's management approach, especially with regards to its information security and IT systems, can be either a problem, a strength, or an opportunity to explore as you go through a vulnerability assessment. It's common for an organization with outdated but well-managed systems, procedures, and equipment to be more effective in mitigating risk than an organization with newer but poorly managed systems. When conducting a vulnerability assessment, the assessor should examine the morale of the staff, the extent to which the staff are compliant with policies and procedures, the effectiveness of monitoring, the openness of communications, the management of assets, and other factors that could represent predisposing conditions that could either increase or decrease risk to the organization.